Hello, everyone. Welcome to TCC Book Discussions. Today, we have a diverse mix of readers and authors with us, with whom we'll be discussing about favorite tropes and preferences in science fiction and mythological fiction. And we also have author Sambit Daspatnaik with us, whose debut novel, The Last War and Other Stories, is currently trending on Amazon. And we'll be knowing from him how he has managed to combine both sci-fi and mythological fiction in his book. We'll also be concluding with an interesting Q&A and giveaway. So please stay with us till the end of this event. Okay, to start off, we will be asking Hiranya to please introduce himself, the kind of books that he reads, and what is his favorite science fiction book or mythological fiction. So Hiranya, what do you like about this particular genre?
Okay, so first of all, sci-fi and fantasy, the genres put together, they're such a it's such a diverse genre. Like you can find various elements in it, various uh, viewpoints, various ways in which the genre explores different things. So it's very difficult to choose like one favorite novel or film or whatever within a genre. But I would say like um, way back when I was introducing myself to the genre in general, I encountered this book called Dune by Frank Herbert. And so I didn't know much about sci-fi back then. I was familiar with Isaac Asimov and the classics in general. And so while reading this book for the first time, it was a different experience. Like it was a book of epic proportions. Like it, you can imagine like Lord of the Rings, what Lord of the Rings stands for in the high fantasy genre, and you know uh, Dune basically stands for something similar for sci-fi. So and yeah, it talks about this huge galactic empire and the human civilization having expanded into an interstellar way of life, and there is conflict and political intrigue, and um, it's like it's very difficult to and also it encaptures these specific cultures and how different uh, noble houses and uh, kind of society is modeled after the feudal structure that was in place in on earth, like in the medieval times, but then adapted for sci-fi and their specific environments. So it's very diverse. And another book that many people don't really aren't really familiar with when I talk about this one is uh, what was it called? It was wait, it's a very complex name. I kind of forget about it, but it's by this author called Ursula Le Guin. Um, are any of you familiar with her? Uh,
No,
Yeah,
I
so
don't think we have heard.
basically, Ursula Le Guin's over in general, um, you know, there's this novel where I'll look it up a bit later. She explores um, this interaction between the human race and a race of aliens, which have a single gender. Like they can oscillate between the female gender and the male gender. So the complexities and that arise from this interaction. So yeah, I mean it's a really diverse genre, and I guess those are the two that really hooked me in this particular sphere of books.
Lovely. For me, actually, Hiranya, when I was really small, so I mean, my mom brought this big book of Isaac Asimov, and there were so many short stories, and I was really baffled. But I could connect to a particular story. I don't remember the name now, but it was about a connection between, I think, a nurse and an alien boy. So that was really moving for me. I mean, the entire science fiction element is there, but there's also this human element, that emotional factor. So even in science fiction, I look for these kind of elements. And why just emotions? When we talk of emotions, it doesn't have to be just sad, but also humorous, because there's this book by Douglas Adams, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So that is one of my favorites, and whenever I read this, that's like sort of an instant mood uplifter kind of thing, and it's one of my go-to books actually. So I completely relate to the character of that depressed robot. So yeah, so there's so many elements going on, and still the author has time to make up for some really bad poetry. And and so yeah, so these little elements, they sort of pepper up the entire narrative of science fiction. So of course, a particular narrative cannot be just cold hard facts, coming at us, tumbling at us one after the other. So there has to be a flow to the narrative, right? So I find these books to be really, catering to the expectation, because uh, we as readers search for a lot of elements. We read so many other books, and we are not sort of restricted to the science fiction genre per se, but yeah, so when such elements are woven into the narrative, it becomes really interesting. So yeah.
No,
So
definitely. Yeah.
do you read mythology, by the way? So any Indian mythology favorites?
Well, so I try to get into Amish,
Yeah, Amish
but to
Tripathi.
be honest, I didn't like his work. Um, I was really intrigued with the things he was dealing with, and the mythological world, the particular mythological world
Mm,
that he was trying to recreate
recreate.
and explore. But then I couldn't really, gel, if I can put it that way, gel with his voice, with his authorial voice. But I know a lot of people who love his work. And in general, I mean, like Indian mythology has so many potentialities for it to be explored and captured in the fictional medium, so films, books, video games, even, you name it. But I mean, it's being done nowadays. There's one other Indian mythological, fictional work I like. It's this Disney movie called Arjun, the Warrior Prince. I guess that's the
Okay.
name of it.
Okay.
Yeah, uh, I really liked it. Like it was really well done, and I always waited for a sequel, but the sequel never came. So, you know, but yeah. Also, yeah, the novel I was talking about, it's called The Left Hand of Darkness.
Okay.
Uh,
Right.
yeah, yeah, I highly recommend it. You should check it out. Thanks.
Sure.
Um, yeah, and talking about mythology in general, I would say recently I've been delving into a lot of books that kind of adapt classical mythological stories to explore different perspectives and different ways you can view those stories and challenged established norms. Like you have, of course, a very well-known novel, Neil Gaiman's American Gods,
Yes.
and you have the Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Um, these and even the new one, it's called the Palace of Illusions, I believe.
Chitra
Yeah,
Banerjee.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah. So these books, I've been reading them recently, and they're also like brilliant. Like the way these authors take the original material and uh, and like put their own spin on it,
True.
but at the same time not disrespecting or
The actual source.
misappropriating the, yeah, they respect the source, but also they add something to it, where even what happens is when you go back to the original source, its dimensions are heightened for you,
Okay.
like once you read the new.
So
So yeah.
essentially, it's like we've been, acquainted with legends from the past, and ancient scriptures and all the stories that have been, told to us. But deep within us, there's always this yearning for, for knowing what if. So I think all these mythological retellings, they cater to our expectations. So what if? So what if they had an alternate history, or what if the characters had behaved differently? And I think that is, the entire essence of the present mythological fiction books that we see. So okay, I'm going to give a question now to Preeti. So she's currently writing a novel, based on history, and many portions of our novel, since we are acquainted with, her work. So I find it really interesting the way she's, amalgamated history and, a little bit of science, sci-fi, lots of research. So Preeti, just tell me, what do you expect out of a, mythological fiction book? So any favorites?
Yeah, actually, for me, mythology, like you said, the question of what if it were true? For me, it starts with that question: what if it were true, and what if whatever has happened today is because of some true fact on which this mythology is based? So that's where I start my investigation from. For any myth that I am trying to work on or even think about. For this historical fiction that I'm writing, for that also, there were many questions, and they got layered with a few mythological interrogations of my own. So, what if one part that you know about the secret that I was researching, and the one that I'm alluding to in my book. What if it were true, and what if this historical character had something to do with it? What if there was a 2,000-year-old secret society? What if whoever we pray to, or whatever gods and goddesses we have, were all based on true people? You never know. So that kind of forms the basis. So Chitra, I kind of rambled. Can you repeat the question again?
So I was just asking you about your favorite. I just loved the way you rambled. So please ramble on.
Yes.
No issues at all.
Okay. Yeah,
So, but
about
yeah,
my
I was asking you about
yeah.
your, favorite mythological fiction books and what you like about
Yes.
this genre.
Okay. So I would tell you, and I think Hiranya, please don't judge me on this, but I did like the entire Meluha series. I do not agree with the way Amish writes, of course, because but I do like the humanization of characters that he has done. And I am an architect, and with a very deep interest in conservation. So I know the parts that he has described in The Immortals of Meluha, the first book. In that, the way he has described the cities of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa and Lothal, and the geography and even the sociology of that time has historical roots. They are based on hard evidence. The research is spot on. Even the way he has described the cities and everything. And then he's built a story around it. So no one knows what happened in Mohenjo-daro, Harappa. No one knows whether Shiva, the mythological and my favorite god, my favorite, yeah, Shiva is real or not. But he kind of mixed both of them very beautifully. And then again, kind of sowed the seed of doubt of what if this were true? What if there were something like that? So, that hands down for me, for its content, is my favorite series. And after which, yeah, I love the Ramayana and the various retellings of Ramayana. I'm from Kerala. So, oh, great. Thanks, Costa. Yeah. And I'm from Kerala, and my father's elder brother, he collects old scriptures and he loves researching on stories. So he has the version of Ramayana from Sri Lanka, in which Ravan is the hero. And some parts of Kerala also talk about that. So it's you look at it through different perspectives. And Kerala also has one more version of Ramayana, which is the Sitayan. Okay, it's from the perspective of Sita. So that story, spoken from various perspectives, uh, I don't know. It's very rich, and it talks about geography. It talks about what could have been, or maybe what was. You never know. So, and it leaves lots of holes for us to think and dig deeper into. So, again, take the thread of what if and go around. So Ramayan, and yeah, and that those were the stories which our parents also told us right in the beginning. So
yeah, so many characters from mythology,
yes,
so many possibilities where you could explore, and
yes,
it's really
yes,
amazing how authors and they are imagining these
absolutely.
worlds, the entire worlds built on them. So whether they and these worlds can have a different timeline from what we know. So it can go
Yes,
back and past or somewhere in the future. So
yeah.
it's quite
So
interesting what can be done with
absolutely.
mythological fiction.
Because I just know that moment when the whole thing of probing deeper came into my head. So that was when I was looking at a very detailed map of India, and we had just finished this. This was, I think, when I was in class 4 or 5, and I had just finished reading maybe two versions of Ramayana, and I think, was it the time Ramayana was on TV as well? Yeah. So yeah, I think it used to come on TV at that time. So I saw this whole Ram Setu thing, this for natural formation of shoals, which connects Rameshwaram to the island of Sri Lanka. It connects that. So I saw that thing in my geography textbook, in that detailed fold out centerfold map. And I went running to my teacher and I said, "Okay, ma'am, see, I think Ramayana is true. See, there is this monkey bridge is here." So she told me, "See, it's not the monkey bridge. You don't know things, abhi tak, so you don't jump to conclusions. Ramayana is a story. It's not true." And after that, I found myself going into the library, searching the encyclopedia, pounding my elders' heads, trying to find out what that thing was. So I think that is where it all began, that fateful afternoon, many, many years ago. So that's my first big connect. No, it wasn't animated. You're talking about Ramayana? No, no, no. We had that Arun Govil and that thing one go with the very bad special effects. I don't know if anybody of my generation is there. I think Sambit might know a little
Yes,
about it.
yes, Privi. I've
Yes,
seen it. I totally relate
yes,
with you
yes.
on this.
Yeah, and maybe Chitra if she remembers.
Which
Bachpan ka
one?
kuch. Ramayana, yeah.
Yeah.
It,
Ramayana, Mahabharata, we all used to
Yes,
see
yes.
all those flying
Yes, yes. So
arrows,
yeah,
flaming
yeah, our
flying
neighbors and all
arrows.
used to come and sit. It was a big occasion, Sunday morning, 9 o'clock. Even our Bharatnatyam classes had to end at 8:30 because the teachers had to go back to sign, which is half an hour earlier. So I had my dance class at like 6:45 in the morning on a Sunday morning just because of Ramayana.
Yeah,
So
I remember we used to run
that's
back
it.
from church just to see Ramayan, and
Yeah.
followed by Mad. I remember.
Yeah.
So we used to shift channels.
So it's
Wow.
so
It's
that
full of
that's my connection.
nostalgia. I mean, what mythology means to us and what we see in books today is completely different. So
Absolutely.
Pushan, we'd just like to, have your take on this. So what's your favorite sci-fi go-to book? And what kind of mythology do you like to read?
Well, I do like to actually I studied lots of pantheons and mythologies. Uh, some of them were Hindu. Sorry, yes, Hindu is yeah, Hindu. Uh, Other from Greeks, Roman. Actually, I do follow mythology in general, and I read later found out it's called mythography.
Okay.
So I did learn a bit of mythography. As for science fiction, my first start to in a book series of science fiction was Angel's Chronicle.
Okay.
It was about how a child of 13 years, due to his intellect and intelligence, would win the war against an alien invasion, unknowingly committing genocide and annihilation of that species.
Okay.
But here's a twist: that anger would form a psychic connection with the last ember, or I think it was last child of that species, and would try to re-flourish that life again. So it was a very beautiful series. That was also my first book series I read based on science fiction.
Nice.
Then I learned about Hitchhiker's Guide to the.
Oh,
I
okay.
forget the title every time. I just remember Hitchhiker's Guide
Guide to the
something.
Galaxy.
That was the most hilarious thing I've ever
I think
read.
he also followed Douglas Adams also followed it up with a sequel, which was titled, I think, The Restaurant at the End of the Universe or something.
I have
Is
not
that true,
read
Hiren?
that.
I think it was, there was another.
I'll try. I'll search it.
Yeah.
So in recent days, I have actually read graphic novels and comics, and again, Mahabharat, I watched through an animated series. Same goes with Ramayana. So few years ago, I had found that Grant Morrison, the creator of Batman, had written his own take and what if scenario in a different age of Mahabharat called 18 Days. It was very beautiful. The closest thing I could come to that is Sambit's last, I forgot that name.
Last War and Other Stories.
Yeah, Last War. And I loved it. I'm halfway done. I'm almost towards the end, and I'm loving every moment of it. Then there was Ramayana 2000 something AD. I forget the number again. There have been other comics and graphic novels for the current generation or Generation Z, so that they could get or at least understand the concept of the story and have their own thoughts of it. There's Daksha, Sadhu, songs of, I forget that name. But those stories were very beautiful. My favorite is Daksha, since I am, in terms of Hindu gods, I love two significant god. One, Ganesh, the god of not only wisdom, but also of many restaurant chains and food in general, as well as the god of the underworld, judgment and death, Yamraj. And Daksha is the story of one of his sons as he tries to recapture the souls, sinners that left hell. Forgotten the name. Yam. I forget the name of Yamraj is called. What was it called? Anyway, hell. I'll go with hell. The most simple and common name I can think of right now. Sinners who left hell, and he starts bringing back those hideous and deadly sinners back to hell on the command of his father Yamraj. If he fails, he would not be reunited with his lover. So the story takes place throughout the world and throughout various iterations of Yamraj and his images as Daksha tries to reclaim the souls of the sinners throughout the world. It's very beautiful.
Quite the collection that you have read.
Yeah, I'm having a very tough connection, and it's echoing, right?
So lovely hearing from you, Pushan. Okay,
I have
so
many
as you
questions.
have mentioned The Last War and Other Stories, so we have the author with us. So I'll just introduce him. So Sambit Daspatnaik is an artist, and he's also a software professional. And his debut novel, The Last War and Other Stories, as you know, many of us have read, it's trending on Amazon. So let's hear from him a little bit about the book. So over to you, Sambit. Please let us know about the concept of your book and how you came with it and how you came up with it. What were your early sources of inspiration for writing this book? Because you have beautifully combined both sci-fi and mythological fiction, which is something that we're all discussing today. So how did you manage to pull that off?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you, Chitra, for this forum. And I can see that we have such a lovely quorum here. All of them are like so learned, so much of reading they have done. Probably I haven't read so many books which earlier some of them have talked about. Probably maybe I was focusing on a different journal altogether. But then before I really talk about my book per se, I just want to go back a little bit, like, and many of you would probably relate with this. It's something like, we would have vacations, summer vacations. Of course, I have mostly stayed out of my native Odisha. But whenever I go back, I would connect with my grandmother. She's no more today, but she will always narrate these very fascinating stories from mythology. All right. Now there would be stories, of course, about the Mahabharat war, which was always very interesting, very gripping, and you'll find so many different stories, so many different characters, and so much of intermingling of plots and subplots. It's really complex. We all know that. And of course, the most simplistic and very motivating is the Ramayana, as you know. And of course, I saw the Ramayana television serial, and then so I have always been like in that kind of a culture around. Then most of us authors are on one end. I am very much interested in the mythology. On the other side, you will see that like I am also very much into science, love maths, keep doing my paintings in between, which are again, some of them are based on our ancient gods and goddesses and stuff like that. Now, when I was reading about Mahabharata and Ramayana, I also touched upon some of the Puranas, the Shiv Puran, the Vishnu Puran. I mean, they're lovely. Now, certain things I found when I would try to question certain aspects. Now, just see, for example, what would happen, say, we are talking about, say, the concept of the Mahabharat war. It happens, you see people using different kind of weapons. These weapons are being called through some mantras or some kind of spells. Can be related with something like voice commands. Okay, the certain facts which are mentioned there, like Arjuna going to Patal Lok, okay, and to the Patal again. When I try to look into it, what are the different ways? See, we all have different ways in which we can look at mythology, isn't it? Now, mythology is something which is very subjective reality. I mean, I'm narrating the same Mahabharata, the same Ramayana, and Ramayana itself has more than 600 versions, believe me, and out of which maybe I've read only a few. I was really fascinated by the way Ramayana is retold in a different way in the Southeast Asian countries. Same thing with Mahabharata. There's an Ashwatthama's version of Mahabharata deep down in South. I don't remember the exact place, but then it's there. So you find different versions being told. We're talking about the same war, we're talking about the same characters. Now give it a different perspective also. Now think that all these things happened also with certain amount of technology involved. So you use voice commands to call certain or invoke certain weapons. Now, and there's also this connection of, say, Arjuna, as I told you, going back to his marriage with Udupi, where he goes to Patalok. The other way of looking at Patalok is, it is considered to be South America, the exact opposite of where India is in our world. You will find that just as then you find that though we are Bharata, just beside us is Sutra Rajya, which is about the Southeast Asia, and they had common culture. I mean, the way we were connected to the way we interpret dharma, righteousness. That is what used to actually connect us or disconnect us, and wars were mostly happening with respect to that. Let's take that also as an aspect. Now, as you move further to the left of the globe, you will find that we have Rasatala, which is South Africa and all that. So there are different names which have been mentioned in our ancient texts. It's just we have to really get deep into it and try to research upon it. When a person goes to South America, where he meets the Mayans, which I am in my book relating to the Mayans, all right, where there's the same what if. That's a question which Preeti is also looking at. So you'll find one common thing about all these science fiction and mythological authors is that we start questioning what if. We try to look at things from a different perspective. Of course, I'll touch upon the other stories in my book, but then talking mostly about mythology and science fiction, and coming back to the focus of that. So you see that there is a different interpretation of each of the things written in our books, the subjective truth as we call it. So you see a connection between two different worlds, different civilizations. So data civilizations really talk to each other the way we do today. And how did they do that? Now, even if we are connected in some way or disconnected or have disagreements or there is a war due to some selfish motives, or adharma as we call it, unrighteousness? Is there certain other elements that actually are ruling us or guiding us? That's the element which I bring in later, which is rampant in our Puranas, the concept of the Devas and the Asuras. And Devas have a certain way of living. Asuras have also a certain way of style of living. We really cannot clearly call them right or wrong. They have their advantages and disadvantages. Like, for example, if, say, we say Lord Indra is on one end, the Asuras are on the other side. Lord Indra has his own weaknesses too. He is at the top, but he has his own weaknesses. He's always afraid of whether he would really like to. He doesn't want to lose his throne, and he does a lot of things to maintain it. Doesn't it resemble something with our, or relate something with our current situation where we have a lot of leaders at top position, or businessmen, or people who are like will do anything to retain that position? So there's a cycle, and asuras are always fighting to get that position which the devas have. Now, what if they were spiritually advanced and technologically advanced as well? And they would, and say the space travel would be happening anytime. I mean, it was very easy to just fly over. So there is this intergalactic wars. So keeping this thing in mind, you come to a phase where somewhere you lose the connection. Where exactly did we lose the connection now? One speculation is that post-Mahabharata war, there was so much of destruction that we had lost a lot of the learnings and the teachings. So what would happen to the descendants of the Pandavas? Now, if you again look at it from different perspective, as I said, mythology is a subjective reality or a history. Our Indian term is itihasa. Itihasa is again something which is history, if you transliterate it in English. So then you start wondering, fine, okay, these are legends. It happened at some point of time. If it really happened, then there has to be something before and after it. So if I go back to Lord Rama's time and try to see what happened before and after, I would see that there is a complete dynasty. The entire Ishkavaku dynasty has been written and doesn't end at Lord Rama and continues even after that for ages. I mean, it is there till even the common era, they have the lineage. Similarly, with the Mahabharata, the Pandavas have a long list of dynasty even after the rule of Arjun, the Pandavas, and Parikshit came in, then Janameja, and continues. And then we have to talk about a different element. Now we're talking about if all these things are happening, is it something which is cyclic in nature? There's something which has been very well explained in many of our Indian texts and Hindu philosophy about the law of karma, and the whole world, the civilization is cyclical. Whatever comes has to go, and again will come back in different way or in different form. So again, there is some element of loss and some element of gain. Now, when you try to mix all this, what if? Is the question I would again go back to what Preeti was saying. What if all these things actually happen? And what if there is a world that we have somewhere missed to really relate to? So that's how the story, The Last War, came in. So I'm talking about a time post-Mahabharata war. Maybe I talk about one war. Many of my readers were asking for a sequel. Maybe I'll have more wars after that, but never ends. Somewhere it again comes back, the learnings, again we have to learn the hard way. Society learns from certain amount of defeat, certain amount of victory, certain amount of loss, but again we lose it at some point of time after generations, and again the whole lessons are learned again. And that's probably what's happening across the world. So I think from that, the concept of the last war really, I think, came into me. Coming to other stories, again, there was this what if. If you one of the favorite stories, the Blink. Yeah. So Blink, I have talked about an organ transplant. Okay, and that's happening between. I'm going to futuristic, that are very, very futuristic, and I'm talking about my main protagonist who has to go through an alien organ transplant, and her life changes, and how she, in that situation, learns certain life lessons also as she handles certain problems and situations, and that with her limited crew, she's in a spaceship. yeah, it's a little bit influenced also with Star Trek series, which I used to see a long time back, where I remember that I used to see those handheld devices, like just, Captain Kirk opens it up and just says, beam me up, Scotty, and then there's this teleportation happening. Today, mobiles are a reality. And if you're looking at a lot of research happening in the medical sciences, you will realize that somewhere there is this lot of research happening around stem cells. You're talking about pluripotent cells which can help grow organs in the lab. If that's a reality, we will have so much of advantage in the future. Everyone will be able to see. Everyone will be able to have
people. They are now harvesting stem cells from umbilical cords, and they are storing them for the future. Like
that's right. Yes,
that's
absolutely.
That's
and I'm going a step ahead. I'm talking about being used for creating organs in the lab. Okay, so that's how, like, so with this kind of reference, what in future we are in touch with aliens, we know about alien civilizations, and this is also happening across aliens. So that's how it comes across. Then the resurrection, where I'm talking about the sun being resurrected. Now, how it came to me across is that, like, many of you would have or might not have, but you can go and Google it out, is about Baba Vanga. Baba Vanga was a Bulgarian blind lady who could foresee the future. And her predictions are even far more clearer than even Nostradamus. And she's talking about two suns in the future. She's talking about another civilization, human civilizations existing in Mars, something around in 2500. And they're again having a nuclear war with Earth. So there's again going to be some kind of a interplanetary war, if not intergalactic. She talks about humans finally going out of this planet Earth, which will be useless after some thousands of years, and then they'll be going and creating new civilizations. And I was like astounded. And this is what we even see many of the science fiction authors writing about. So that's the beauty of science fiction also, like where you give a dream, you see that it can happen, and sometimes it happens, and some of them are actual predictions. So resurrection is something which came from there. And the story of the Holy Temple of Eula, it's where I try to touch upon aliens in a very different perspective. Are they really something which is, they're in higher dimensions, they're more spiritual, and they're actually always guiding us? Is the spiritual message coming across to us on planet Earth? So with this kind of concept, if you're going to an alien planet and you're facing a threat, life-threatening virus, and then there's no recourse except to spirituality. And how does that connect? I think that's how the stories got weaved, keeping in mind these backgrounds. It's all about what ifs. So that's how it is.
Sambit, even I have read all of these stories, and as you said, Blink is a favorite of so many readers, and it deals with the intriguing concept of organ transplant. Even I've been, getting in touch with readers, and they've come up to me and said that Blink is our favorite, probably because of the eyes and everything. So yeah, and it's a common problem. We girls, we don't like ourselves the way we are. So somehow. So that deals with, it starts off being a very mundane problem. Anna does not like her eyes. Okay, so someone does not like the nose, lips, and Anna does not like her eyes. And then it starts with that, and then you get to know why she does not like her eyes. So that is something like many people could relate to. And yes, as you mentioned, for the Holy Temple of Eula, I had read this story, and the ending was indeed, it stays with you for a very long time. You feel that pain, you feel that sacrifice, and you feel that tinge of spirituality. It's otherworldly, but in a very spiritual sense. Okay, so a quick question for Preeti. You have read Sambit's book. So what do you think about the entire concept and how he has woven these different narratives into a single book? It's very difficult to do. How did you, what did you think of Sambit's book?
I thought that his the sheer range in that one book was so amazing, from Mahabharata to say a story like Blink to hardcore sci-fi stories. I mean, he's got an amazing range. I mean, the what if question is like, all over. He has kind of increased the reach by light years. So I really thought his range was amazing. And the way he put across very difficult concepts in a very simple way was something that I really carried over from his book. It was so simple at its core. The message, the theme, the central theme was basic. Even Blink, like you were saying. So Blink for me was, like you said, Anna doesn't like her eyes. But for me, it was the basic human flaw, or I would call it a flaw, of not being content with what you have, of not being able to see the goodness or the merit in your situation, which then Sambit explained in such an entertaining way. So Blink is my all-time favorite from that book. And I liked it for the emotions that he wove in, and the emotion that he evoked. Like it touched something in me, because I keep getting very upset about the state of my leg now because of a surgery I had. So I immediately connected with Anna, and I can't dance anymore because my legs pain, and no, I can't walk properly without my footwear on. So all those things are things I keep cribbing about. But then, that story inspired me also. So I like Sambit's books, this book especially, for a variety of reasons. One, for its sheer range. Two, for the simplicity of the messages each story sent forward. And three, because Blink is very close to my heart. I really connected with it. Thank you, Sambit, for writing that book.
In fact, I would like to thank you, Preeti. I'm so glad you liked it. And thanks for sharing your experience.
Okay, so now we come to someone who I regard as a literary soul sister of Sambit. So Sambit
Yes.
and Suman, who goes by the pen name of PB Fla, they're literary soul sisters and brothers, because their writing style is so similar. And, the way they connect over sci-fi and mythology, the rest of us are usually, okay, what's happening? But they have their own language going on, okay? We don't, really
Yes.
know what's happening, but they connect, okay, these are the terminologies and, various mythological facts that they're always discussing. So, Suman, so I'm going to spotlight you. Please introduce yourself in your work. Okay, so PB Flower, Suman is the author of the All Kal None, a trilogy. Please introduce your work, and just tell me how you got to know about Sambit's work, and what did you feel about it when you came across his work.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so like you said, I go by the pen name PB Flower. And my first book is a trilogy, All Kal None. And I don't know, I just stumbled across Sambit, I think, through the creative circle. And I don't know why, among so many people, I just picked his book to read first. And I guess it was the connection that we have, like he's my brother from another mother, like you say. So I just picked his book and I read it, and I'm like, what's going on here? There's just so much similarity between him and me, the way we think. So, and of course, whatever I have penned down in my book is similar to his, but mine has more of a romantic spin to it, and his is like core mythological and science fiction in it. And I really like that, because unlike me, he's not all over the place. He's very focused, he's very descriptive, and that's what I liked. I think the way he has simplified everything and described it in great detail, and you can understand it very well. You don't have to Google words or try and understand, read between the lines and all that. You don't have to do that. It just comes very simply across to you. So that's what I liked.
So, what do you look forward? What do you bug him about his next story, or something like? Do you discuss, what stories you're writing amongst yourselves?
Yeah, after I finished his book, I was like, Sambit, you have to write a sequel. You have to expand, each one of your stories. it can't just end there. So because I wanted to read more. And I know everybody's favorite is Blink, but mine was The Last War. That's my favorite, only because I'm very intrigued with the mythology, and I'm very much like I have dug deeper into Upanishads because it's very scientific, and it talks about it, how our universe was created, and they have their own theories and calculations and everything in there. So that's where my inspiration comes from, and so I mean, like I said, I want to read more what Sambit's take is, and I want him to expand on his stories, and he has said that he is doing that. So can't wait.
Thank you, Suman, for sharing your views. And I'm sure Sambit will come up with sequels and maybe new stories, extensive ones. We're really hoping for extensive ones this time. So
Yes.
I think you're working on something right now, Sambit?
Yes. In fact, I am working on something which is going to be more like a novel fiction. I'll take you back further to the time, even much before the time of Mahabharata. I'll be taking you the world of fantasy, science fiction, and mythology all combined. So working on it is in draft. So fingers crossed. But yes, it will come out soon, hopefully. And one thing which I was just referring to when Suman was talking about is that, like, when she talked about this, she did mention to me about expand these stories. So I said, I'm working on the next one, and that's going to be pretty well detailed, and a lot of plots, subplots, and layerings should be coming in. And hopefully I would also be going for a sequel for it, because the moment you're working on it, and by the time you're finishing it, you already have certain thoughts about what next. So that's something which I'm already thinking about. Another aspect is that, like, when Suman mentioned about the Upanishads, right? So one thing I found is that the way she's connecting the Upanishads, the Puranas, and some element of, because again, Mahabharata also is an epic, fine, but then there's a lot of interconnection that we're talking about. So the way she has connected it very subtly across in her all Kal and the first part, which I've been going through, I mean, it's amazing. And she brings in a very what to call it, like a very modern outlook to the whole aura of the intergalactic connections, parallel universes, and everything. She's trying to give a very scientific element and in scientific words. So it's very different. And I have read different science fictions or even mythology. I mean, but then they are, of course, always separate. Her book is something which is written in keeping a lot of, I believe, a lot of young and futuristic mindset. So hats off to you, Suman. I mean, you have 3 parts. Yeah, there's a trilogy, and for others who would like to also check it out. And one thing she was talking about, right, those Upanishads and the Puranas. If the readers here have been reading mythological fictions, I would also ask them to go and check out the non-fiction aspect of it also. There have been a lot of writers who have written, have given different versions of the book, and nothing. And the best part is always to go back and connect to something which is original. If you really read the original Ramayana, for example, I mean, you will really find it very simplistic. There's not too much of aura around anything. Lord Rama is always shown as a Purushottam, the way he is, as is, because he had a purpose behind it, a lot of explanations behind it. That is amazing. And then you find a lot of people building on it. Then you will relate a lot. So here, when you talk about mythology, science fictions, a lot of non-fiction and fiction combination helps. I mean, just a message to the readers here.
Okay. So yeah. So Damien and Nidhi had some questions for Sambit. So Nidhi, would you like to ask your question?
Okay. Hi, Sambit. Nidhi here.
Hi.
And I think we met last time at the community meet.
That's right.
And I really loved your story at that time as well. Being a
Thank you.
co-author, I have two questions. One being, it might sound really cliche, but because it is bringing science fiction and mythology together, and reading your book, I've realized that there is never a place where the reader feels like you're stepping into the dark. Never ever. So I'm really curious to know the time of research that you have put behind it, especially in the science fiction part, and your process.
Just repeat the last part, Nidhi.
The time that you have put behind the research, behind the sci-fi part, because
Okay.
I think you've spoken about the mythological part, but I would really like to know more about the sci-fi part and the kind of research you have put behind it, and how long did it take you?
Okay, you talk about the research part. I wouldn't say that it's like something like, okay, I want to write this book, and okay, from now I start researching on it. It never happens that way. For me, science fiction, I've been reading science fiction. I've been reading the books of Isaac Asimov, the Foundations. They're amazing. And then you read about Gene Wolfe, Ted Reynolds, the big names, and I've read those, their work, their stories. So as a child, as Chitra was putting across, so I got a plethora of books to read. And it was just not non-fictions. So it was just not science fiction. It was also to do with all other type of fiction genres. So that is one aspect. Now, somewhere in between, I started reading a lot of non-fiction because of my interest in a lot in science. So I would be reading a lot of books. It was something apart from my physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology in school days. All right. So, and whenever I used to go to book exhibition, I would always carry not only fictions, but even non-fictions. So my father would always get, I would choose some of those science and technology books. So so in my school, when I was getting those books, I would read about the series, how they work, which had not even become popularized at that time, and over the 90s and all. Okay, so I was always trying to find out more, and I had that interest. Now, when you start talking about it, when you're writing a fiction, now, for example, I have a story in my mind. See, it works both ways. Either you have a story in mind, and you go about researching on it. I have done that also. For example, for the last war, to a great extent, I had a story in mind, but then I researched upon it. And there is also the other aspect where you have been researching on certain things. Say, for example, I talked about the Anna's story, right? So it's like I've been reading about them, what's really happening in the world of medical sciences, what new things are coming up. And we read that, and you sometimes, as an author, when you're sitting, say, for example, you sometimes go for a medical test or some routine checkup, you go and sit and you just wait, and you just observe people, you just see people, how they react, how they respond, what pains they go through. Somewhere all these things connects. All right. Now, for example, for the last war, in fact, I actually had a different ending, to be honest. I'm just sharing in this audience to my readers and everyone. But when I further researched on it, I realized that Mohenjo-daro and Harappa cities were just vanished overnight. That's something very difficult to digest for any civilization. Okay, many attribute to the Saraswati River, which used to flow below it. At that time it was visible, and then later on it went below Earth. But then, if that happens, it has to be gradual. See, most of the civilizations exist near we talk about Egyptian civilization is near the river Nile. We talk about Indus civilization is near Saraswati and the Indus River. So every civilization has got some attributes to the rivers. Okay, Saraswati would have taken a lot of time to dry up. And how would the Mohenjo-daro and Harappa civilization really get lost? All of a sudden, overnight. And I started reading more and more, researching upon it. Then I read the articles of, Professor Davenport. He's an archaeologist who found that the stones that have been found, the fossils found in the Mohenjo-daro site, have been literally pulverized. They were like exposed to extremely high temperature, which is possible only in case of a nuclear holocaust. All right. And then you find out that these Mohenjo-daro and Harappa were thriving civilizations, and that too, they were something like, they were called as divine cities in the ancient times. All right. So, and they were also, there are certain articles which also talk about they having technology. So there was there are a lot of missing links. So then I spent a lot of time just researching this aspect. Okay, I gave a pause to my story. I went back, I researched upon it, and then I had different endings. Finally, I chose this. So I found this something very interesting, very much what if scenario, which we was talking about earlier. So this is how it happened. And also another thing is that I wrote the stories at different points of time. I never wrote all of them at one go. That I had to publish a book with 5 stories. No, I never had that plan in the first place. I just kept writing. And probably I wrote one story a year, kind of. Okay, within 5 years, I had actually a collection of 5 and a few more which I have not yet published. All right, so this is how it happened. Now, when I'm writing a novel, which I'm actually working on right now, that requires a very systematic, I can say, research and all that. So I spent the initial first few months, maybe 6 to 7 months after the launch of The Last War, I've been spending a lot of time only on researching. I didn't even think about a plot. Then I spent a couple of months to only plot it out, think about something very dramatic around it. And then you start creating the characters, the sub-characters, and the structure around it, and then go about the story, actual story, which is, of course, in the process, in making right now. So the second book has been a different experience altogether from my first. And this time, as you said, as you asked about the time of research and all, yes, it took me time. It took me a lot of time, and that too apart from my professional activities.
Thank you so much, Sambit. Also, second, very subjective question. Which is your favorite mythological character and why?
Okay, there cannot be one. It's very difficult to say that.
Okay,
I
top
don't want to
3.
name one.
Top 3.
Okay. Okay, again, you're talking about anything specific, like you're talking about Ramayana or Mahabharata or...
No, you can tell me any mythological character that you really connect to, you really like.
Okay, my personal favorite would be Karna. And is, I think, one of the most favorite character of many. I've been following the news also around it. He's one self-made man. And he fights against all odds. Nothing really favors him, and still he stands. So that's one, I think. I think other one would be Lord Krishna himself. I mean, we are all devotees of him. So that's something which is like, if you look at the avatars, they've always been like moving from the lowest to the highest, what do you call it, the human evolution kind of thing. Evolution, yeah. So that's how it comes in Mahabharata. Third one, no, not exactly. Nothing. The rest are all coming into third slot, I guess.
All right. Thank you so much, Sambit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nidhi, for the question, and thank you, Sambit, for answering them so well. Hiranya, do you have any question for Sambit? I mean, you've been you've been listening for quite some time now, and I mean, any questions for the author, like anything about the type of stories that he writes, anything about the writing process?
Yeah.
Actually, this question is for Hiranya is going to ask the question now.
Okay. Really fascinating things you were talking about. I was like glued to what you were saying. And one thing that is coming up again and again, the question of what if. So relating to that, there's this going back to on history and analyzing different ways in which we can incorporate different mythological stories and explore their mythopoetic, if I use that word, dimensions in fiction. So do you have any such inspirations that you read? It can be from any mythology, anything really that actually sparked off this train of thought that, if I look at in this mythological sphere in this way, then I can like branch off from it, and then you got the idea. Was there any germ that sparked off this whole thing?
Interesting question. Okay, to me, it was not like I got into a particular book or an author. Because see, to be honest, I read pure science fictions or pure mythology. All right, let me be very honest about it. I haven't, and of course, now there are a lot of research happening, or rather, authors are coming up with a lot of different variations of in science fiction. Say, take for instance, Suman's All Calm None. It's a romantic science fiction thriller with so much of elements all around it in the background. Okay, so these things are coming up now. I mean, when of at least a decade ago, I haven't seen that kind of a thing happening. We have tall authors writing about it, but they have focused on a specific genre, whether it's science fiction or mythology. Now, that questioning is something which probably I would say is very much self-inflicted. I'll explain you how. Now, when somebody tells you the story of Lord Krishna, like he is like taking care of these cowards, he's taking care of the cows, and he takes care of everyone. Everyone loves him. All right, and he's just playing a simple flute. There's a lot of element, around that flute also. I mean, that music that goes on. So that attracts everyone, all the animals, and everyone is very, very happy around him. So there's this aura of positivity, and he takes care of everything, right? For he's an all-knower. He's the one who pervades everything in a human form. Now you see Lord Brahma coming in, getting jealous of Lord Krishna, but he doesn't realize that he is Vishnu. He's the avatar of Lord Vishnu. So he wants to test. So what he does, he removes all the cowherds and all the people, the gopis from Vrindavan, and he takes him to some place in his abode, somewhere he captures them. And then the entire village is like, there's nobody. Now Lord Krishna, he duplicates, keeps cloning himself. I'll use the word clone here specifically. He clones himself, and everyone is still there, and he takes those forms. So no mother has lost his child. Okay, no cow has lost his calf, and so on. It goes on this way. And after 1 year, when Lord Brahma comes back and sees that everything is working fine here, how could it be? Like I have taken prisoners. I've taken everyone's prisoners from this village. Lord Krishna should be alone. Krishna should be there alone, standing there, but nothing happened. So you see a concept of cloning here. All right. Now let's move to the other aspect. Now all this has happened. So now Brahma feels like, okay, I have to go and meet this fellow. Something he has done, which is something very different from what we actually, which only the gods can do. So he goes and travels to earth. He comes and lands there. He's searching for Krishna. He doesn't find him anywhere. Then he goes to one mountain, on top of which Lord Krishna is playing his flute. And there he sees not only he himself, but he sees that there are many Brahmas. Someone has many heads. The more the number of heads, the bigger the universe he is handling, and so on. So then he realizes that there is something known as multiverse. Okay, that he's not the only one who is taking care of a universe. There are many Brahmas taking care of different universes. Okay, and there's another interesting story of Revati, okay, who married Balaram. Revati actually is from a totally different time period, from different yuga. There's Chatur Yuga, right? The 4 yugas in which the mythology, Hinduism stands on, like the Satya Yuga, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali Yuga. And as we move along this, within each yuga, the dharma diminishes by one quarter. Okay, so and then again is cyclical. So she belongs to a totally different yuga, and then she. Her father is a Manu, of course, of that particular entire set of lakhs and lakhs of millions of years. You should ask Suman about it. She has a very good explanation of how these intergalactic time and everything moves. Okay, so it talks about billions of years. That's Brahma's life. Now she belongs to a totally different era. She comes out of, she goes with her father to the center of the galaxy. Why do they go? Because her father, Manu, wants a good bride, a good groom for his daughter. So when he does that, he waits in Brahma's lok because Brahma is busy with some activities. He finishes his whatever professional duties and he comes and meets Manu, and then he says, why are you here? I'm looking for the most suitable bride for my daughter in this universe. So he said, that's fine, but by the time you go back to Earth, thousands and thousands of years would have passed. when you go back, this height of people would have reduced. When you go back, you'll see your kingdoms are not there. Nobody will identify you. You'll be walking like a giant. So he goes back. You see what elements I'm touching upon here. When he goes back, he travels back. Again, there's an intergalactic travel here. The concept of interstellar travel. He goes back, he sees a totally different time. Now, Lord Krishna and Balaram are there in the Dwapara Yuga of the totally different time period. So when he meets them, Lord Brahma, on the advice of Lord Brahma, Manu asks Krishna what to do. What is the advice? Who will marry Revati? So Balarama asks her to touch the plow. The moment she touches the plow, she comes to the relevant height of Balaram, and they both marry. Now here you see interstellar kind of travel. You talk about things about everyone is doing some kind of professional activities and duties. Okay, you talk about millions and millions of years time. You're talking about time dilation, whatnot. You can have different kind of you can draw different inferences from this, basically. All right, and these came in because they were the simple stories told to me as a child. And as I grew up and as I studied science and survey, it just clicked to me. Why not? I saw the movie Interstellar. I said, oh, come on, it's mentioned in our ancient texts. So why not? What if? Okay, this is the way it would have happened. And see, this entire universe is again all connected, interconnected. Anyone can get this idea. And it's all mentioned not only in our ancient texts, it's mentioned in all the different ancient texts you will go and search across the world. So maybe that's possibly that's how that influence came, and that's how I could connect with these things. So that's how it is. Maybe just relating totally different subjects and trying to get a connection out of it.
No, but yeah, Sambit, the way you talk and explaining these things, I mean, we were so lost in that. Sometimes I also find Devdutt Patnaik's those explanations are also very nice. He has written so many alternate versions of mythology,
yes,
and even so many other stories. So there are so many alternate explanations that he gives that immediately you begin to think in a completely different direction. So I got that kind of vibe when you were explaining.
Thank you. I'm honored. But then, yeah, he's so well versed. He's so well read, and he's so thorough in his subject. And I think if anyone wants to look at mythology, also, of course, he deals in a different way. He tries to explain in a very simple way things which we might have forgotten or would have lost touch with, and certain things we find very complicated. He makes it very simple. Yeah, I have been following his work for a long time, and that he's one of our go-to person. If you want, he's today's modern grandma, as they call it, right?
Yeah, totally. Okay, so Damien, you had a question for Sambit.
Yes. So hello, everyone.
Hi.
Before I proceed with what I have to say, I think I have to apologize to Hiranya. I nearly stole your question, right? And the people here who know me are probably thinking, why am I so quiet today? The thing being that I'm not much into mythology, but I did read a book. Okay, it was called The Red Jewel by David Peterson. A good friend of mine. His book is not very well known, however. It talks about the Egyptian gods and stuff. And what was interesting about it is the fact that you learn a lot about stuff that you don't know, basically. But Sambit, and I apologize, I hope you don't mind me calling you by your first name.
Yeah, please do, please.
Okay.
I mean, you should be calling me Sambit, please. Yeah, go ahead.
There is a book by Dan Brown, The Da Vinci Code. Okay, it's not a mythological fiction. Okay, however, in it, as we read, I'm sure most of you all must have read it. We learn at the end that Jesus married Mary Magdalene, and stuff goes on from there. And it became so well known at that time that people actually started believing this. Right. People actually associated it with the Dead Sea Scrolls, and that Jesus actually married Mary Magdalene, and the fact that there is still a descendant of Jesus Christ still in this present day.
I've read that.
My question being is, do you think the what if can be misleading at times? And if so, what is your opinion of that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I get your point here, because see, when you're doing what ifs, there's certain things which has to be taken care of and one has to be careful about. See, I think when Preeti was talking earlier, and even many of them mentioned, see, when they're saying that okay, I'm just telling you what I feel about it personally and what I have been trying to focus on. See, there are certain elements which is like sensitive, and that has to be respected. Like for example, when I say what if, okay, what if should also be in a certain area, should be confined to a certain area which doesn't really hurt the sentiments of a certain section of society, and that's very, very true, and that's something which I believe in. Now, when I have done what ifs, I have always tried to look at it from a scientific perspective, which is something which people can relate to, and ensure that like you really don't basically cross the line, to be honest. I mean, to put it in a very simple language. So that's what it is, basically. I think I connect with you on this, Daniel. And I think this is something which is should be taken care of. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Damien. I think that was a very important question. I mean, when we do mythology and when we do science fiction, I mean, there can be plenty of times when we can get carried away. And then sometimes as authors, we often, we can find ourselves in a more moral conflict, whether to go ahead, I mean, whether it might offend some sentiments, or whether some people who might, actually get attached to these mythological characters, can they be offended by this? So sometimes that can happen, sensitive topics. So
Chitra, maybe just one point here. Sorry to interrupt. Just one point. Like say, for example, now we know that. I'll give one more example or instance here. Like say, for example, when I read the Mahabharata and the Buddha descendants, which is mostly mentioned about the post-Mahabharata war, which normally nobody reads about. He does mention about Brihat. He was actually one of the descendants of the Ishkavaku dynasty. So he belonged to the lineage of Lord Rama, and then so he also participated in the war, and he fought on the side of the Kauravas. Whereas if you see, and he was killed by Abhimanyu. And Brihat son became the king as far as the Ishkavaku, the Suryavanshi dynasty. Still, see, at that time also there were different dynasties, like Suryavanshi, the Chandravanshis and all. Okay, now this is something there. Now, when you are trying to portray this, you can look in and around this, like for example, what would have happened in terms of the connections. You again research a lot why he took participated on the side of the Kauravas, not on the side of the Pandavas. What really happened in between? Maybe again we say dharma is subjective to a great extent. It's like sometimes gets personalized. So he would have had thought it from a different perspective. That's okay. But the moment if you try to change it, this did not happen. Something else happened. And then you try to say that and give a totally different or vague explanation to it. That hurts. That hurts the sentiments. So that's something we should be really careful about.
Yeah.
You can't distort facts at the same time. For example, a particular king was a valiant king, and he was a very brave warrior. You know that he fought with, I mean, the reference would be that he fought along with the Devas and the Asuras. Great, excellent. You can talk about how he feels, how his emotions would have been as a human being. The way Amish Tripathi has done in his book, The Trilogy. But it should not really cross a line or show something which is totally, out of the blue or something which people can't accept. Maybe this is a much better, clear explanation. And thanks for adding on to that, Chitra, because I think that maybe answers Damien's questions better.
Okay.
That's one of the greatest reasons why readers should read the first page where it says this is a work of fiction.
Exactly.
Well said, Damien.
Well said.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Sambit. I'm really looking forward to reading your book, the one about the eye. That has really intrigued me.
Sure. Thank you so much. And I loved your narration in this flash fiction.
Okay, thank you.
It was too good.
People are still
Uh,
talking.
so all our viewers, Damien, Suman, Sambit, me, Preeti, we all had done narrations of our flash fiction, and you can see them in the previous video. So that is what we have all been referring to. You know, all the TCC community meets. Just go and check out the previous episodes, because we have been, you know, introducing our work. We have been reciting poetry and short stories, and there's so many more narrations to come in future. Okay, coming back, Pritish has been very excited since the very beginning, like when we announced this meet, and he said, I want to ask the author some questions. So let us take some questions from Pritish now. Pritish, please unmute yourself, and you can ask your question.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am, for giving me the opportunity. And hi, good evening, everyone. So, one of my main questions is like, what was the motivation behind, mixing both these two things, the fiction that you talked about and the mythology that you talked about? And I'm like, really, am I audible?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thanks. So yeah, and the mythology and the tales like that you were telling, I don't know the exact reference of it in which scriptures it's written about the Balram and the Balram like, to whom you were married, but it's the fact. So yeah, so how did you got this thing? Ki, let's merge two things when in a time like people are moving away from religion and they are much more into the daily stuff, or you can say
Contemporary.
materialistic world. So how did you like what was the first eureka moment that came into your mind, like I should write on this?
Okay. Yeah. So
Take a
see,
moment, Sambit.
yeah. So I think I would say that I don't want to end. I don't want to start off with something like a thank you note saying to everyone that like, okay, so and so person was like influential and all that. But then I'll tell you certain facts. It's never one person or one incident that will help that will give you that influence. It can happen, not that. But then for me, it has been like I would say it all started with my grandmother, as I mentioned earlier. Like she would narrate a lot of stories. Her name is Vishnu Priya, and she was very learned, very knowledgeable, and she had done a lot of reading of all the Upanishad, the Puranas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and she would keep telling us the stories. The stories continued even from time to time when my parents also retold all their stories, because my father, my mother also had been hearing those stories from their parents, and so that environment has always been there. Science, of course, again, I would say that my parents, and especially my father, has been very influential to. He has always been open to me in terms of like you choose what you want, and he also gave me the like exposure. Okay, why don't you try this? Read about this, about that. So these are my very early. I'm talking about the childhood days. So I did study a lot of science. I was also interested in arts. I was also interested in social sciences. So that's what maybe helped me to look at things from different perspective. Coming to that, you never know where the point of inflection is exactly. It's very difficult to pinpoint. But then when I started also delving more and more into it, then I started thinking back about it, starting relating to it. Then certain point of time I felt, yeah, maybe this is something which has happened or which can be told in a different perspective, keeping in mind the importance and the place and the value of both mythology as well as science fiction, because both of them are great in their own way. So that's how it is. I'm not sure if I could answer the question, but then yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like that's great. So one more question is like, what's your advice for the budding authors out there, like who want to start on writing and who want to embark on a journey just like you did, like follow you basically as their idol when it comes to writing? So what's your advice for them?
first of all, don't follow me, follow your own conscience and what you really believe in. I mean, that's the first thing I would like to say. Having said that, I would say that believe in what you write on. I mean, that's very important. And that's once your work is something unique, something different, it comes only when you have certain belief that, okay, this is something I should write down. And that's something is the most important thing. Once that happens, it could be, there's so many genres all around. And what I have actually seen is that writers, authors thrive when they write something which they really love to. So that is something which you should do. But then what happens is many people don't reach there very soon. I mean, it takes some time also. So what do? Experiment, write, keep writing. That's very important. The more you write, the more confidence you'll get. Many authors also say keep writing daily. I don't know. It's really possible for people who also have so many important priorities in life. So, but then it's important to keep writing regularly, at least whenever you feel like. So I have seen, I met and talked to many authors. They write whenever they can, and when they write, they like empty their mind with all the beautiful thoughts they have. So keep writing, believe in yourself. That's it. Don't. I mean, other thing. So don't. I would say that any profession you take, whether it's writing or painting, art, science, you become a scientist. You want to become a project manager, you want to become a software professional, you want to become an architect or whatever. Everything takes time. It builds on slowly and gradually. So you should also have certain amount of patience and perseverance. So maybe that's it. Maybe they are simplistic, but then yeah, that's it. That's the only fact.
I think those are some great pointers, Sambit. I'm sure all the budding authors who are watching this would, really get inspired. That it's like not too complicated, not something really utopian that you have to do this and become really great and then write a book.
Yeah.
It's something really simple that you feel within yourself and you write what you want to, follow your heart. And I think that's the best way. That's the way that I think most of us follow. So
True.
yeah. So thank you everyone who've joined in. And Hiranya, Damien and Pritesh will be getting paperbacks of Sambit's Last War and other stories. So congratulations, guys. It was wonderful questions and interactions. I cannot win because I already have my copy. So, so if any of your friends want to go check out Sambit's book, please refer your Sambit's book to them. It's available on Kindle Unlimited, so anyone with that subscription, you can read it for free. And it's currently available on Kindle at a discounted rate. So before the price rises again, please go and buy. And of course, you can get this beautiful paperback as well. Hiranya, Damien, and Pritesh are the lucky ones for today, but you can, of course, check out it at the Amazon store. So yeah, thank you for watching, and please like, share, and don't forget to hit the bell icon. Please subscribe to our channel, because at TCC, the Creative Circle, we are encouraging creativity in various forms. We are encouraging the influx of knowledge and interactions between readers and authors and creators. So please do subscribe to our channel. And follow Sambit Daspatnaik on Amazon and on all his social media accounts. Of course, Nidhi, Damien, Suman, we're all authors. And you can also follow, our own personal accounts. You can also follow the Creative Circle Official on Instagram, on Twitter. We're on FB, we're on Pinterest. So please do keep following these channels for more exciting content. Thank you so much for joining in, everyone. Thank you, Sambit. Thank you, Damien, Nidhi, Suman, Hiranya, Pritesh, Preeti, Pushan, Costa, everyone who joined in. Thank you.
Thank you so much.